guys, welcome to day 87 of the Bible in a Year plan. Today we will be reading 1 Samuel 20, 1 Chronicles 4, Acts 14, and Psalm 56, 57, and 142. If you need to read more about this plan, visit the High Quality Gospel website with the link in the description of the episode and the podcast. Please leave a like and follow the podcast to stay up to date with new episodes. Now, let's begin with reading 1 Samuel 20. David fled from Naioth in Ramah and came to Jonathan and asked, "What have I done? What did I do wrong? How have I sinned against your father so that he wants to take my life?" Jonathan said to him, "No, you won't die. Listen, my father doesn't do anything, great or small, without telling me. So why would he hide his matter from me? This can't be true." But David said, "Your father certainly knows that I have found favor with you. He has said, 'Jonathan must know of this, or else he will be grieved.'" David also swore, "As surely as the Lord lives, and as you yourself live, there is but a step between me and death." Jonathan said to David, "Whatever you say, I will do for you." So David told him, "Look, tomorrow is the new moon, and I'm supposed to sit down and eat with the king. Instead, let me go, and I'll hide in the countryside for the next 2 nights. If your father misses me at all, say, 'David urgently requested my permission to go quickly to his hometown, Bethlehem, for an annual sacrifice.' They're involving the whole clan. If he says, 'Good,' then your servant is safe. But if he becomes angry, you will know that he has evil intentions. Deal kindly with your servant, for you have brought me into a covenant with you before the Lord. If I have done anything wrong, then kill me yourself. Why take me to your father?" "No," Jonathan responded. "If I ever find out my father has evil intentions against you, wouldn't I tell you about it?" So David asked Jonathan, "Who will tell me if your father answers you harshly?" He answered David, "Come on, let's go out to the countryside." So both of them went out to the countryside. "By the Lord, the God of Israel, I will sound out my father this time tomorrow or the next day. If I find out that he is favorable towards you, will I not send for you and tell you? If my father intends to bring evil on you, may the Lord punish Jonathan and do so severely, if I do not tell you and send you away so that you may leave safely. May the Lord be with you, just as he was with my father. If I continue to live, show me kindness from the Lord. But if I die, don't ever withdraw your kindness from my household, not even when the Lord cuts off every one of David's enemies from the face of the earth." Then Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, "May the Lord hold David's enemies accountable." Jonathan once again swore to David in his love for him, because he loved him as he loved himself. Then Jonathan said to him, "Tomorrow is the new moon. You'll be missed because your seat will be empty. The following day hurry down and go to the place where you hid on the day this incident began, and stay behind the rock Ezel. I will shoot 3 arrows beside it, as if I'm aiming at the target. Then I will send a servant and say, 'Go and find the arrows.' Now if I expressly say to the servant, 'Look, the arrows are on this side of you, get them,' then come, because as the Lord lives, it is safe for you and there is no problem. But if I say this to the youth, 'Look, the arrows are beyond you,' then go, for the Lord is sending you away. As for the matter you and I have spoken about, the Lord will be a witness between you and me forever." So David hid in the countryside. At the new moon, the king sat down to eat the meal. He sat at the usual place on the seat by the wall. Jonathan sat facing him, and Abner took his place beside Saul. But David's place was empty. Saul did not say anything that day because he thought, "Something unexpected has happened. He must be ceremonially unclean. Yes, he is unclean." However, the day after the new moon, the second day, David's place was still empty, and Saul asked his son Jonathan, "Why didn't Jesse's son, come to the meal either yesterday or today?" Jonathan answered, "David asked for my permission to go to Bethlehem. He said, 'Please let me go because our clan is holding a sacrifice in the town, and my brother has told me to be there. So now, if I have found favor with you, let me go so I can see my brothers.' That's why he didn't come to the king's table." Then Saul became angry with Jonathan and shouted, "You son of a perverse and rebellious woman, don't I know that you're siding with Jesse's son to your own shame and to the disgrace of your mother? Every day Jesse's son lives on earth, you and your kingship are not secure. Now send for him and bring him to me. He must die." Jonathan answered his father back, "Why is he to be killed? What has he done?" Then Saul threw his spear at Jonathan to kill him, so he knew that his father was determined to kill David. He got up from the table fiercely angry and did not eat any food that second day of the new moon, for he was grieved because of his father's shameful behavior towards David. In the morning Jonathan went out to the countryside, for he appointed meeting with David. A young servant was with him. He said to the servant, "Run and find the arrows I'm shooting." As the servant ran, Jonathan shot an arrow beyond him. He came to the location of the arrow that Jonathan had shot, but Jonathan called to him and said, "The arrow is beyond you, isn't it?" Then Jonathan called to him, "Hurry up and don't stop." Jonathan's servant picked up the arrow and returned to his master. He did not know anything, only Jonathan and David knew the arrangement. Then Jonathan gave his equipment to the servant who was with him and said, "Go, take it back to the city." When the servant had gone, David got up from the south side of the stone Ezel, fell face down to the ground, and paid homage 3 times. Then he and Jonathan kissed each other and wept with each other, though David wept more. Jonathan then said to David, "Go in the assurance the 2 of us pledged in the name of the Lord when we said, 'The Lord will be a witness between you and me, and between my offspring and your offspring forever.'" Then David left, and Jonathan went into the city. Now we read 1 Chronicles 4. Judah's sons, Perez, Hezron, Carmi, Hur, and Shobal. Reiah, son of Shobal, fathered Jahath, and Jahath fathered Ahumai and Lahad. These were the families of the Zorathites. These were Etam's sons, Jezreel, Ishma, and Idbash, and their sister was named Hazeliponai. Penuel fathered Gedor, and Ezer fathered Hashua. These are the sons of Hur, Ephrathah's firstborn and the father of Bethlehem. Ashur fathered Tekoa and had 2 wives, Helah and Nara. Nara bore Ahuzam, Hefer, Temni, and Hahashtari to him. These were Nahara's sons. Helah's sons, Zereth, Zohar, and Ethnan. Koz fathered Anub, Zobibah, and the families of Ahariel, son of Harmun. Jabez was more honored than his brothers. His mother named him Jabez and said, "I gave birth to him in pain." Jabez called out to the God of Israel, "If only you would bless me, extend my border, let your hand be with me, and keep me from harm, so that I will not experience pain." And God granted his request. Chelub, son of Shuhua, fathered Mehir, who was the father of Eshton. Eshton fathered Beth Rapha, Paseah, and Tehina, the father of Nahash. These were the men of Reka. Kenaz's sons, Othniel and Sarai. Othniel's sons, Hathath and Meonathai. Meonathai fathered Ophrah, and Sariah fathered Joab, and the ancestor of those in the craftsman's valley, for they were craftsmen. The sons of Caleb, son of Jephunneh, Eru, Elah, and Nam. Elah's sons, Kenaz. Jehalelel's sons, Ziph, Ziphah, Tiriah, and Asariel. Ezra's sons, Jether, Mered, Epher, and Jalon. Mered's wife, Bithiah, gave birth to Miriam, Shammai, and Ishba, the father of Eshtemoa. These were the sons of Pharaoh's daughter, Bithiah. Mered had married her. His Judean wife gave birth to Jared, the father of Gedor, Heber, the father of Soko, and Jekuthiel, the father of Zanoah. The sons of Hodiah's wife, the sister of Naham, the father of Keilah, the Garmite, and the father of Eshtemoa, the Maacathite. Shimon's sons, Amnon, Rena, Ben-Hanan, and Tilon. Ishti's sons, Zoheth and Ben-Zoheth. The sons of Shelah, son of Judah, heir to the father of Leka, Lada, the father of Merishah, the families of the guild of linen workers at Beth Ashibiah, Joachim, the men of Kozeba, and Joash and Seraph, who married Moabites and returned to Lehem. These names are from ancient records. They were the potters and residents of Netaim and Gederah. They lived there in the service of the king. Simeon's sons, Nemuel, Jamin, Jarib, Zerah, and Shaul. Shaul's sons, his son Shallum, his son Mibsam, and his son Mishma. Mishma's sons, his son Hamuel, his son Zakur, and his son Shimei. Shimei had 16 sons and 6 daughters. But his brothers did not have many children, so the whole family did not become as numerous as the Judeans. They lived in Beersheba, Moladah, Hazar-Shual, Bilhah, Ezem, Tolad, Bethuel, Hormah, Ziklag, Beth Markaboth, Hazar Susim, Beth Biri, and Sharaim. These were their cities until David became king. Their villages were Edom, Ain, Rimmon, Token, and Ashan, 5 cities, and all their surrounding villages as far as Baal. These were their settlements, and they kept a genealogical record for themselves. Meshobab, Jamlech, Joshua, son of Amaziah, Joel, Jehu, son of Joshabiah, son of Seraiah, son of Aziel, Elionai, Jekabah, Jeshohiah, Asaiah, Adiel, Jesamiel, Benaiah, and Ziza, son of Shiphi, son of Alon, son of Jediah, son of Shimri, son of Shemaiah. These mentioned by name were leaders in their families. Their ancestral houses increased greatly. They went to the entrance of Gedor, to the east side of the valley, to seek pasture for their flocks. They found rich, good pasture, and the land was broad, peaceful, and quiet, for some Hamites had lived there previously. These were those recorded by name. It came in the days of King Hezekiah of Judah, attacked the Hamites' tents and the Meunites who were found there, and set them apart for destruction, as they are today. Then they settled in their place because there was a pasture for their flocks. Now 500 men from these sons of Simeon went to Pelatiah, Neriah, Rephiah, and Uzziel, the descendants of Ishi, as their leaders to Mount Seir. They struck down the remnant of the Amalekites who had escaped, and they still live there today. Now we read Acts 14. In Iconium they entered the Jewish synagogue as usual and spoke in such a way that a great number of both Jews and Greeks believed. But the unbelieving Jews stirred up the Gentiles and poisoned their minds against their brothers. So they stayed there a long time and spoke boldly for the Lord, who testified to the message of his grace by enabling them to do signs and wonders. But the people of the city were divided, some siding with the Jews and others with the apostles. When an attempt was made by both the Gentiles and Jews, with their rulers to mistreat and stone them, they found out about it and fled to the Lycaonian towns of Lystra and Derbe, and to the surrounding countryside. There they continued preaching the gospel. In Lystra a man was sitting who was without strength in his feet, had never walked, and had been lame from birth. He listened as Paul spoke. After looking directly at him and seeing that he had faith to be healed, Paul said in a loud voice, "Stand up on your feet." And he jumped up and began to walk around. When the crowd saw that what Paul had done, they shouted, saying in Lycaonian language, "The gods have come down to us in human form." Barnabas they called Zeus, and Paul Hermes, because he was the chief speaker. The priest of Zeus, whose temple was just outside the town, brought bulls and wreaths to the gates because he intended with the crowds to offer sacrifice. The apostles Barnabas and Paul tore their robes when they heard this and rushed into the crowd, shouting, "People, why are you doing these things? We are people also just like you, and we are proclaiming good news to you, that you turn from these worthless things to the living God, who made the heaven, the earth, the sea, and everything in them. In past generations he allowed all the nations to go their own way, although he did not leave himself without a witness, since he did what is good by giving you rain from heaven and fruitful seasons, and filling you with food and your hearts with joy." Even though they had said these things, they barely stopped the crowds from sacrificing to them. Some Jews came from Antioch and Iconium, and when they won over the crowds, they stoned Paul and dragged him out of the city, thinking he was dead. After the disciples gathered around him, he got up and went into the town. The next day, he left with Barnabas for Derbe. After they had preached the gospel in that town and made many disciples, they returned to Lystra, to Iconium, and to Antioch, strengthening the disciples by encouraging them to continue in their faith and by telling them it is necessary to go through many hardships to enter the kingdom of God. When they had appointed elders for them in every church and prayed with fasting, they committed them to the Lord in whom they had believed. They passed through Pisidia and came to Pamphylia. After they had spoken the word in Perga, they went down to Attalia. From there they sailed back to Antioch, where they had been commended to the grace of God for the work they had now completed. After they arrived and gathered the church together, they reported everything God had done with him, and that he had opened the door of faith to the Gentiles. And they spent a considerable time with the disciples. And now we read Psalm 56. Be gracious to me, God, for a man is trampling me. He fights and oppresses me all day long. My adversaries trample me all day, for many arrogantly fight against me. When I am afraid, I will trust in you. In God, whose words I praise. In God I trust, I will not be afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? They twist my words all day long. All their thoughts against me are evil. They stir up strife. They lurk. They watch my steps, while they wait to take my life. Will they escape in spite of such sin? God, bring down the nations in wrath. You yourselves have recorded my wanderings. Put my tears in your bottle. Are they not in your book? Then my enemies will retreat on the day when I call. And this I know, God is for me. In God, whose words I praise. In the Lord, whose word I praise. In God I trust, I will not be afraid. What can mere humans do to me? I am obligated by vows to you, God. I will make my thanksgiving sacrifices to you. For you rescued me from death, even my feet from stumbling, to walk before God in the light of life. Now to Psalm 57. Be gracious to me, God, be gracious to me, for I take refuge in you. I will seek refuge in the shadow of your wings, until danger passes. I call to God Most High, to God who fulfills his purpose for me. He reaches down from heaven and saves me, challenging the one who tramples me. God sends his faithful love and truth. I am surrounded by lions. I lie down among devouring lions, people whose teeth are spears and arrows, whose tongues are sharp swords. God, be exalted above the heavens. Let your glory be all over the whole earth. They prepared a net for my steps. I was despondent. They dug a pit ahead of me, but they fell into it. My heart is confident, God, my heart is confident. I will sing praises. Wake up, my soul, wake up, harp and lyre. I will wake up the dawn. I will praise you, Lord, among the peoples. I will sing praises to you among the nations, for your faithful love is as high as the heavens. Your faithfulness reaches the clouds. God, be exalted above the heavens. Let your glory be over the whole earth. Now we read Psalm 142. I cry aloud to the Lord. I plead aloud to the Lord for mercy. I pour out my complaint before him. I reveal my trouble to him. Although my spirit is weak within me, you know my way. Along this path I travel, they have hidden a trap for me. Look to the right and see. No one stands up for me. There is no refuge for me. No one cares about me. I cry to you, Lord. I say, you are my shelter, my portion in the land of the living. Listen to my cry, for I am very weak. Rescue me from those who pursue me, for they are too strong for me. Free me from prison so that I can praise your name. The righteous will gather around me because you deal generously with me. On day 86, we read of David being pursued by Saul and protected by God. The Gentiles heard of Christ at Antioch, as the Jews rejected him. Today in 1 Samuel, Jonathan and David create a plan and try to figure out why Saul is trying to kill David. And in truth, the reason Saul hates David is because he is supposed to be his replacement. Saul now has the desire to be king, unlike he had before, and it was ripped from him because of his own disobedience. Remember, Saul was picked because he was humble and from a lowly tribe. However, Saul has become king and constantly disobeyed God against all orders. He now blames David for obtaining the kingship, even though God was the one to leave Saul. And so, why not just blame God? Why does David have to be the target? And so we see a lot of people want to blame God for various reasons. Maybe it's something that they were hit with in the past. Maybe they're in their life they have had some serious problems that have happened. Or maybe they just hate the idea of God. Maybe it's nothing personal always. So they will hate God. They will blame God for different things. Some say that they actually are blaming God. They're not angry at anyone else. They're only angry at God. Some do say that. However, their focus will always be towards things right in front of them. They'll never just stop at, I blame God. They never do. And they always point it, always focus that hatred to something. Because God is not right there in front of them. They can't see it every day, and so they focus it on something that they see often, they can talk to, or something they can disregard. Saul blames David, even though David did nothing. David literally did nothing. David did not even choose to be king. But what it is, David is the walking visual representation of Saul's disobedience to God. And there is nothing he can do about it. David's supposed to be his replacement. And so God has put David in this situation so that way Saul can always look at David. So Saul has to look at David, and he has to see how the people love David. He has to see how David follows God. He has to see the things in David that he was supposed to experience. He was supposed to be praised. He was supposed to have the glory. He's supposed to follow God. And Saul knows that all of this is true. Saul knows it's all true. He's not going to deny that it's all true. But he sees David as a walking visualization of his sin. Because you can't hang sin up on a wall and say, I hate you, and that be it. No. You hate things that are kind of visuals of that sin. David is the visual of what Saul should have been, and so he hates David for being that. We hate to physically see our sin in front of us. That's what we want, believe it or not. We want to choose something to be that sin, but then hate it. Hate that thing. For example, Israel in the wilderness had to look at the snake on the pole in order to be healed, because they sinned against God. The cross is even a display of our sin. And so the reason Saul hates David so much is that it's essentially his sin right in front of them. We hate to see our sin in front of us because it humbles us. If you want to see what pride does to a person, here it is. King Saul is the perfect visual of how pride can destroy someone. Pride is dangerous and a sin that often goes unnoticed. Not just a feeling of, I'm better than all others, but also, I deserve this or that. In the end, God decides what we deserve, which is very little. God gave us a life, and we decide to ignore Him and sin against Him, rebel against Him. We don't even deserve the cross, but through His grace and love, He gives us what we do not deserve, eternal life. Saul is unable to understand the idea of grace, and he does not pursue it like we should pursue it. We need to swallow our pride, humble ourselves, and pursue grace from God. This is what Saul forgets. In Acts, Saul and Barnabas go to Iconium, and they preach to the people there. Before they arrived, the Gentiles were lied to and were convinced to fight against their preaching. And people would do this to us. They will have been given false conceptions about Christians and tell of false teachings and false behaviors that make us look evil. People will start to spread lies about Christians and to make them have a preconceived notion of who we are. And so it's our job to fight against these preconceived notions. How do we do that? We have to speak the truth. If we speak the truth, these lies will be uncovered and the name of Christ can't be dragged out through the mud. Now, sometimes people don't listen. The people believed that Saul and Barnabas were gods and did not listen to their preaching, only their miracles. And as a result, Saul was stoned because they could not gain traction because the people weren't listening. Now, does this mean give up? No. They left, made disciples, and returned to these places that rejected them, hoping to get a new result. And they did. But what they said was very much true. It is necessary to go through many hardships. And how many now are willing to go through hardships? We know that they will come. That has always been promised, even by Christ himself. But hardships will come, and that's okay. We have God to protect us and God to rely on. And in Psalm, we get 3 Psalms of David, as he is struggling and running from his enemies. Psalm 56 and 57 differ in a small way. 56 is meant to ask God for protection, and 57 is praising God for giving him protection. David knows that only God can give protection, and he can't rely on himself. We should praise God for this very thing. In a world where it's hard to rely on others, and in a time where danger could come from anywhere, why not praise God for being the only consistent protector? Psalm 142 is a very humbling song. It's a cry for help. It's not asking for help, he's crying. David is in a very desperate situation, and there is only one thing he can do. He's crying to God. Because David acknowledges that he cannot stand up to his enemies, and we can't either. Sometimes we cannot stand alone, and we can only ask God to stand with us. God is consistent. If you truly have faith in him, trust and obey him, he will stand at your side. He is consistent in that. And so, swallow your pride, humble yourself, and acknowledge that you cannot do it on your own. You can only do it with God. Thank you for joining in the reading and understanding of these chapters, and let us all be vigilant in continuing this reading. Please share, like, follow, or whatever you can do to help us reach more people with the Bible reading. Please also check out the High Quality Gospel website for more information and a couple of store items. Thank you, and keep learning.